What if the strange lights floating through our night sky aren't glitches, but something watching us?
Yeah, now's the time you've got to move.
From faceless, glowing entities stepping out of the ocean to mysterious sky portals, wandering fireballs, and multi-sun sightings. Stick around as we explore the most unexplainable glowing entities caught on camera. Strange sea glow. A tourist staying near the beach huts of Bournemouth, England, stepped out onto the walkway one evening and noticed something strange out on the water. A bright light was gliding just above the surface, moving steadily along the waves like it was skimming the ocean itself. It wasn't a boat. There was no engine sound, no shape underneath it, just the glow drifting past the shoreline. To this day, he still has no answer to what was moving out there on the water. Mountain mystery. A man was working in his backyard in Puebla, Mexico, when something bright orange caught his eye on the hillside. He stopped what he was doing and pulled out his phone. A glowing light sat on the top of the mountain, moving slowly from one point to another before drifting back again, like something was carrying it along the ridge. There was no fire, no smoke, nothing that could explain the glow. He watched it shift back and forth for a while before it faded into the dusk sky, leaving him stunned. Fallen light. Just a year ago, a man was reviewing CCTV footage from the camera on his front gate somewhere in Texas when he froze at what he saw. A bright object landed on the street outside his home. Instead of fading out, it started spinning and drifting across the ground on its own, like it was searching for something. There was no fireworks display or planned drone activity that could explain it. After circling near the driveway for several seconds, it shot back up into the darkness, leaving him completely speechless. Mysterious sky formation. A man out for a morning walk in Phuket, Thailand, looked up and froze when he spotted something glowing low near the horizon. A single blinding point of light sat there, throwing sharp beams outward in every direction, almost like a star had dropped straight into the clouds. There was no engine hum, no movement, nothing to explain it as a plane or drone. He recorded it for almost a minute before it dimmed and slipped away behind the clouds. When this video was shared online, one viewer pointed to a sun pillar, sunlight bending through ice crystals high in the sky, but others were not convinced. Mysterious red streaks. A man living in a small hillside town in Oregon woke up in the middle of the night to a strange sound coming from the street below. When he looked out his window, he saw thin red streaks of light darting between the houses. Slowly, they pulled together and formed 3 glowing orbs, hovering just above the rooftops. He grabbed his phone in time to catch them rise higher and higher until they shot off into the dark sky and disappeared. Neighbors later said they'd seen the same streaks before, but no one has ever figured out where they came from. Peculiar moving glow. Across 3 CCTV cameras in a small village near the mountains of Chihuahua, Mexico, the same glowing red light appeared again and again, slowly moving along the hillside. At first, residents thought someone was walking with a lantern to check on livestock in the dark. It moved steadily on its own and drifted across the whole town. Now, villagers believe the glow was a ghost itself. Ghostly flame. Three nights of strange noise finally pushed a man to check CCTV footage of his porch during a summer stay in the mountains near Durham, North Carolina. The footage showed something small and bright, spinning slowly in circles between the trees, with a glowing tip and a thin trail of light dragging behind it, like a lit match caught in the wind. By morning, he'd packed his bags and left this place, certain he'd caught a wandering spirit. Desert spirits.
Look in your house, you need to get them to move into the home part. To get them up and get them.
A group of university friends hiking through the desert outside Albuquerque, New Mexico, stopped to catch their breath when one of them spotted something hovering far in the distance. 4 small lights sat perfectly still above the sand, glowing steadily against the dusk sky. Then, without warning, one blinked out completely while the other 3 stayed exactly where they were. One of them said it was like spirits watching them from across the desert.
Now it just disappeared.
We're here with you.
They're disappearing.
They're here. They're here.
Misty spark. Just a week ago, a hiker making his way through the Mata Atlântica forest near Ubatuba, Brazil, stopped cold when he noticed a thin orange flame standing straight up above the tree line. He fumbled for his phone and caught a few seconds of it glowing in midair before it flickered out completely. Curious, he shared the clip on Instagram, and viewers identified it as a Willow the Wisp, a glowing spirit long said to lead travelers off the trail and deeper into these woods. Fireball. A group of friends wandering late at night in their village in Sarawak, Malaysia, one night found themselves face to face with something none of them could explain. A ball of orange fire sat near the roadside, low to the ground, and instead of burning out, it began to drift toward them, as if it were reacting to their voices. They stood frozen, unwilling to look away, until it slowly faded into the dark, leaving no scorch mark or smoke behind. After this night, they never went outside late at night, convinced something mysterious had been wandering in the village. Ball lightning. On March 10th, 2023, a woman in a small town near Asheville, North Carolina, stepped onto her porch to film an approaching storm. Thunder cracked overhead, and seconds later, a strange glow appeared low over the street, lingering for a moment before fading. Later, some neighbors guessed a transformer had been struck by lightning and sparked on impact, but one of them pointed to reports of ball lightning, a rare glowing orb that some claim can drift along the ground during storms like this one. Mysterious sky portal. A tourist was exploring old stone ruins on a cliff in County Kerry, Ireland, when he stepped through a narrow window in the wall and saw something impossible in the sky. A shining, cross-shaped light hovered over the ocean, pulsing like it was breathing and sending thin white lines out from its center. He held his phone steady as it flickered above the waves. Convinced it was a sky portal, he stepped back as it continued pulsing. Rising light. A man was driving outside Sonora, Mexico, late at night when something glowing caught his eye in the dark field. He pulled over, grabbed his phone, and stepped out to get a closer look. A small orange fireball sat low near the ground, flickering like it was alive. Then, without warning, it lifted straight up into the sky, climbing higher and higher until it shrank into a tiny red dot before vanishing completely. He stood there in silence, his phone still recording the empty sky, wondering what he'd just watched disappear. Mysterious clouds glow. A woman flying over Miami, Florida, was filming the clouds from her window seat when something below the wing caught her attention. Far above, the sun was already setting in soft orange streaks, but sitting low in the clouds was another glowing orange light, small and steady, nothing like a reflection. She kept her camera on it as the plane pushed forward, but could not explain what it actually was. If you have any idea what it was, drop it in the comments below.
What is that?
Skyward mystery. A group of boys was playing football in Houston, Texas, when they saw strange lights climbing into the night sky. 7 glowing orbs rose one after another, drifting slowly in a diagonal line, bright orange against the black sky. For a moment, everyone stopped playing to watch, wondering if it was something otherworldly. Confused, they asked the coach, who said there were fireworks going up, but the lights never sparkled, and that made everyone even more surprised. Warning light. A storm was rolling over open farmland somewhere near Regina, Saskatchewan, when a man stepped outside to film the darkening sky. Far across the field, a single bright orb sat low on the horizon, blinking steadily as the clouds rolled behind it. It wasn't lightning. There was no flash and fade, just a slow, deliberate pulse that kept repeating in the same spot. Out of curiosity, he called his father, who identified it as a warning light on a distant grain tower, lost in the storm haze. UFO over Salem. A man in Salem, Massachusetts, jolted awake at 3 a.m. to a low humming sound rattling his window late one night. When he pulled back the curtain to check, he froze at what he saw. The entire sky above the city was pulsing with deep blue light, washing over the rooftops and buildings in slow, steady waves, almost like something massive was hovering just out of sight and preparing to land. But no official news ever came out. See anomaly. Recently, a subscriber shared this clip, filmed by his crew aboard a cargo ship in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Vancouver, Canada. Late one night, something caught their attention just above the ship. A strange light flickering red, green, and white all at once, slowly swaying in the sky. Confused, they kept filming until it drifted past the ship and shot straight upward into the sky. But no one on the crew could say for sure what it was. If you have any idea, write it in the comments section. Mysterious sky streaks. One night, a worker finishing a late shift at a rail yard near Chicago, Illinois, stepped outside for a break and noticed something strange painted across the foggy sky. Thin red lines streaked and curled above the rooftops, twisting as if someone were drawing shapes in the clouds. Confused, he filmed the moment and shared the clip on Instagram, inviting viewers to guess what it was, but many dismissed it as a hoax. Bright sky portal. One Saturday night, a man in Tulsa, Oklahoma, stood filming a storm rolling across the sky when something far stranger than lightning caught his eye. A thin streak of light stretched out in a perfectly straight line across the clouds, then curled into a bright, swirling circle that hung there, spinning slowly like it was pulling the storm into itself. It flickered brighter for a moment, almost like it was opening wider, before collapsing in on itself and vanishing completely. Viewers online said it looked less like weather and more like a portal tearing open. Flares in the village. After a string of livestock losses, locals in a small village in Sumatra, Indonesia, set up CCTV cameras to catch whatever was going on. What the footage showed left them speechless. Two glowing flares of light drifted through the village, moving low to the ground like they were searching for something. Villagers now believe something ghostly has been walking through the village and causing their livestock losses. Strange sky beam. A man out for a late walk near the coast of San Diego, California, stopped when a thin blue beam cut across the night sky, connecting a bright point above the rooftops to something glowing low near the horizon. It looked almost like a tether pulling something down out of the dark, steady and unmoving, holding its shape for several minutes straight. He filmed it from a distance, expecting it to shift or vanish. Later, it turned out to be a lighthouse beam. Forest phantom. On October 20th, 2025, a trail camera set up by a hunter tracking deer in the forest in Bakersfield, California, caught something he never expected. A massive, flame-wrapped shape stood glowing between the tree trunks, its edges flickering with an orange glow. It kept moving in the trees as if it were looking for something. No burn marks were found the next morning, no scorched leaves, nothing to prove what had ever been there the previous night. Sky mystery.
Hey Mo, I know I'm not tripping.
You may have seen plenty of strange sky sightings before, but this one might be the most bizarre yet. A man waiting for his cab on a foggy road near Seattle, Washington, looked up and stopped breathing for a second. Scattered across the low clouds was a glowing white pattern. Dozens of faint lights arranged and flickering behind the haze, like something massive was pressing against the underside of the sky, waiting to break through. What do you think was really hiding up there? Let me know in the comments. Luminous sky drift. A man driving along Highway 51 in Montana looked up through his windshield and nearly missed his exit at what he saw. Streaks of bright green light were tearing through the storm clouds overhead, brighter each time the clouds thinned. His first thought was Starlink satellites catching the light strangely, but when he posted the clip on Instagram, most viewers waved it off as a ground laser bouncing off the cloud base. The purple beam. One night, a crowd of beachgoers walking along the shore near Cocoa Beach, Florida, stopped in their tracks when a glowing purple streak appeared low in the sky, standing eerily still. Curious, they filmed the moment and shared it online, calling it a shooting star, but the viewers brushed it off as an AI-generated clip. Triple sun. One Sunday afternoon, a man running errands in Miami, Florida, looked up at the sky and stopped cold in his tracks. Where there should have been one sun, there were three, all glowing bright orange through the clouds. Between them floated smaller white lights, flickering like tiny stars trapped inside the haze. He pulled out his phone, hands trembling, and recorded almost a full minute of it before the extra suns slowly faded back into the clouds. Some people online said it was just a rare atmospheric trick, but he swore it felt like reality had glitched right in front of him. Orbs at the door. One Saturday night, a woman in Charleston, South Carolina, was reviewing her Ring camera footage before bed when something on her porch made her stop and rewind. Tiny glowing orbs drifted up to her front door out of nowhere. They hovered near the window for a moment before slipping straight through the glass and into her house. There was no swarm of bugs, no reflection, and nothing outside that could explain them. She checked every room that night but found nothing out of place, and she left convinced that they were fairies. Ghost beam. Back in 2021, a man walking home late one night in Portland, Oregon, glanced up at the sky and stopped cold. A single light kept darting forward in short, sharp bursts, pausing and then shooting off again in the same direction, almost like it was chasing something invisible through the clouds. He stood there watching, trying to understand what it was, but he could not make sense of it and left thinking it might have been someone shining a flashlight beam into the sky. Mysterious sky glow. A tourist staying at a hotel in Scottsdale, Arizona, stepped onto his balcony for some fresh night air when a strange white glow overhead made him stop mid-breath. It pulsed slowly against the clouds, brightening, then dimming like something breathing behind the haze. When he zoomed in with his phone, a dark shape sat motionless just beneath the light, hovering without wings, without sound, without any visible connection to the glow above it. He watched for nearly a minute before both the shape and the light faded together into the night sky, leaving him wondering what he had actually seen. Mysterious sky formation.
On your phone? Yeah. They're just hanging there. They were lower a minute ago.
One night, highway patrol officers pulled their cruiser outside Nashville, Tennessee, after spotting something odd drifting above the fields. A cluster of small, glowing orbs was drifting steadily closer, instead of scattering as startled birds would. One officer pointed out that it was just a drone swarm out for a night flight, but none of them carried the blinking red or green lights required by law, and no hum of motors ever reached the ground.
Stay behind the truck, all right? All right.
Strange thick cloud. One afternoon, a man stranded on the roadside after a tire blowout near Cincinnati, Ohio, noticed something strange hanging above him while he waited for help. A dark, oval-shaped cloud sat low in the sky, thick and dense compared to the thin, ordinary ones drifting nearby. He panned his camera around to show the difference, then back to the strange cloud, where a faint white glow bled out from its edges like something bright was pressing against it from the inside. Snowflame.
Here's one for you conspiracy. Look at that burn.
On the 5th of December, 2012, two friends vacationing at a snowy resort near Aspen, Colorado, stumbled across something that made no sense at all. Right in the middle of untouched snow sat a perfect circle of orange flame, flickering and rising like a small fire burning on its own, with black scorch marks scattered around the edges. There was no wood, no fuel, nothing feeding it, yet the fire kept burning steadily on top of the ice.
Government-made flammable snow.
Peculiar skyline. A fisherman was standing on deck somewhere in the Pacific Ocean when a thin white line appeared beneath the clouds, stretching slowly across the dark sky before spreading out like smoke caught in the wind. It didn't move like a plane, didn't blink, just kept curving and thickening on its own. What he'd actually caught was a rocket launch trail out of Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The glowing mass. One night, a man driving home after a long shift in Sacramento, California, hit the brakes when something in the sky stopped him cold. Hanging above the rooftops was a massive, round shape, riddled with strange glowing holes, like orange embers scattered through a dark honeycomb. He pulled over and filmed it from the sidewalk, expecting it to fall, but it never did. Angel on beach. Late one night on Dunkirk Beach in France, a man walking alone noticed something rise straight out of the dark water. It was walking upright on the wet sand, glowing a brilliant white from head to toe, its shape almost human but faceless. He froze, phone shaking in his hand, too scared to move closer. For a few seconds it just stood there, glowing brightly, before fading, leaving only footprints in the sand. He believed he'd seen an angelic sighting. Sky glitch.
Oh wow, that's a big one.
A tourist was walking along the pavement in a foggy hillside town in West Virginia when he noticed a strange shimmer high above the trees. A cluster of bright, sparkling lights hovered in the mist, flickering unevenly like static, almost as if the sky itself was glitching and something behind it was trying to break through. Confused, he asked one of the locals, who claimed it was lights reflecting off a distant skyscraper.
Oh my god, that's a monster.
Mysterious street flash. A security guard in Manila, Philippines, was casually checking his CCTV footage when one clip stopped him cold. A blinding flash of light shot down out of the sky and streaked past the camera at incredible speed, throwing off several sharp white flares as it passed. It lit up the whole street for less than a second before vanishing completely. Confused, he shared the clip on Instagram, where one commenter guessed it was just a falling star, but the way it moved, sharp and controlled instead of falling, made him feel like he'd caught something far stranger on camera. Pyrotechnic flare.
Are y'all seeing what I'm seeing flying in the sky?
A taxi driver driving down the highway one night near Charlotte, North Carolina, caught something strange through his windshield and grabbed his phone quickly. Streaks of white smoke trailed down from the sky, thick and glowing at the bottom, burning bright orange like something was falling and breaking apart mid-descent. Curious, he searched online later and identified it as a pyrotechnic flare display deployed by a military jet. Cloud break. Across Florida, several people caught the same strange sight on camera one afternoon. A narrow beam of golden light breaking through a wall of clouds and shooting straight upward into the sky, almost like something behind the clouds had cracked them open just enough to let it escape. Some guessed it was simply sunlight breaking through a gap at just the right angle, but others swore it looked like something far more massive was hiding behind the clouds, waiting to fully emerge. Rainbow Trail.
Bro, what is this?
A man out for a night walk in St. Petersburg, Florida, stopped mid-step when something streaked across the sky above the rooftops, moving fast and leaving behind a stretched, glowing trail of red, green, and blue light. He wasn't the only one who caught it either. Similar rainbow-colored streaks have been filmed the same way over Miami. People now believe it wasn't anything falling from space, but a laser light display, its colors scattering and stretching unnaturally through the humid night air.
Is it real? Like, what is this?
Spaceship. A man hiking a mountain trail near Boulder, Colorado, stopped when something massive took shape against the sky ahead of him. What looked like a huge silver craft sat low over the ridge, its surface catching the light like glass, with a bright white glow spilling out from what seemed like windows along its side. He swore he saw small dark shapes moving behind the light, walking slowly. Convinced he was looking at a UFO, he filmed it until it dissolved back into the clouds, leaving him standing alone on the trail. Shimmering entities. On the night of the 25th of August, 2023, a woman driving home after a birthday party in Phoenix, Arizona, slowed down when a tall beam of light caught her eye, rising straight up into the darkness. Inside it, dozens of tiny glowing particles shimmered and swirled, drifting up and down like they were caught in the light itself, weightless and endless. Later, she showed the clip to one of her friends, who insisted it was just a swarm of grasshoppers trapped inside the beam. Winged sky shape. A man working a night shift at an oil refinery near Bakersfield, California, looked up during a break and froze at what stretched across the clouds. A strange golden glow pulsed behind the clouds, and within it, a dark, winged shape seemed to unfold. It remained there for several seconds, wings flexing slightly, before the light dimmed and the shape dissolved back into the clouds. Some viewers online were convinced it was an angel watching over the storm, but I would like to know your take on it, so let me know in the comments below. Solid sky. On the night of October 9th, a woman in rural Ohio heard a strange rustling coming from the trees behind her house. She grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside to check, aiming the beam up into the branches, but instead of vanishing into the dark sky, the light stopped short, spreading out against something solid, almost like it had hit a low ceiling instead of open air. She moved the flashlight around, and every time, the beam pressed flat against that same invisible barrier. Confused, she shared the clip on Instagram, but viewers were just as stunned as she was. Open discussion. One foggy night back in 2024, a man parked in a lot near Detroit, Michigan, froze when a glowing purple ball dropped low out of the mist, drifting silently between the parked cars before settling near the ground. He grabbed his camera just as it dissolved into a soft trail of smoke. He was convinced it was ball lightning, a rare phenomenon where an electrical charge from a nearby strike forms a floating, glowing sphere, sometimes lasting several seconds before dispersing. With a storm reported that night, the atmospheric charge in the fog may have caused the phenomenon. Ever seen a man move a multi-ton truck with his bare hands? Or people who hover in mid-air? And if even that doesn't strike your fancy, then what about individuals who break world records with their forehead? The world is full of mind-bending human abilities, and we have compiled them for your enjoyment. Bare strength. A man stood in a cramped alleyway between two massive trucks, and what he did next left onlookers questioning what they had just witnessed. With a red truck approaching and barely any space to pass through, he placed his bare hands against the rear of a parked lorry weighing several tons. He pushed, and impossibly, the truck shifted, inching sideways just enough to widen the narrow gap. No machinery, no leverage, nothing but raw human force applied against solid steel. The red truck slipped through the newly created space moments later, continuing on its way as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Witnesses stood frozen, struggling to explain how one man's bare hands had moved something that heavy, a display of strength that defied every expectation of human limitation. Wall climber. No ropes, no harness, no safety net of any kind. A person in a Japanese school uniform scaled the outside of a multi-story concrete building using nothing but narrow window ledges and thin architectural edges as handholds. Every movement was slow and deliberate, each foot placed with a precision that left no room for error. At one point, the climber stretched upward while balancing on a single ledge no wider than a shoe, using a window frame to pull higher. The camera tracked the ascent all the way to an open window several floors up, where the climber positioned themselves at the sill and disappeared inside. Earthbender. A performer knelt in front of a small crowd gathered around a patch of dirt, all eyes fixed on a single rock embedded in the ground in front of him. He reached out with his right hand and gripped the rock, pulling upward. Cracks spread across its surface almost immediately. He didn't let go. Instead, he pulled again, harder this time, and kept the pressure steady as the cracks deepened and spread outward into the dirt around it. With every pull, more of the ground gave way, until the entire section of earth surrounding the rock began rising as one solid piece, lifting directly out of the soil like it was being dragged up from underneath. He stood and circled the rising mound, making deliberate hand gestures as it climbed higher, then knelt beside it briefly before climbing on top and standing there, still and confident, while the crowd watched a plain patch of ground pull itself out of the earth. Disappeared in seconds. Outside at night, a young boy lifted a cardboard box above his head and held it there for a moment, almost like he was using it to hide himself from the camera. Then he let it drop. The box fell, bounced once against the tiled ground, and settled flat. The exact instant it landed, the boy was gone. No footsteps running off camera, no blur of movement toward the edge of the frame, nothing. 1 second he was standing right there, holding a box over his head, and the next the spot was empty, except for the box lying still on the tiles, like it had swapped places with him the moment it touched the ground. Hair power. A crowd gathered along an open road in India as ropes were carefully secured to Rani Raikwar's braided hair. Behind her sat a massive decorated truck loaded with dozens of passengers, its true weight far beyond anything a human body seemed capable of moving. She leaned forward, gripping the ropes tight as her hair bore the full tension, and slowly the truck began inching forward across the road. Onlookers cheered louder with every meter she covered, watching in disbelief as she dragged 835.5 kilograms, using nothing but her own hair and sheer willpower. She created a world recorder that body could believe. Elbow break. A towering stack of bricks stood balanced outside a Harley-Davidson storefront while several men held it steady from both sides. A man climbed to the top of the tower, positioning his elbow directly above the stacked bricks below. Without hesitation, he dropped his weight downward, driving his elbow straight through the entire column in one single strike. The bricks shattered instantly from top to bottom, crumbling into broken pieces across the pavement below. Onlookers stood in stunned silence, struggling to process how one elbow had reduced an entire tower of solid brick into rubble within a single second. Tire deadlift. A massive trap bar loaded with oversized tires sat waiting at the Shore Classic, and professional strongman Evan T-Rex Singleton stepped forward to attempt what most competitors wouldn't dare. The apparatus held a staggering 1,134 pounds, over half a metric ton of steel and rubber locked into place. Singleton gripped the handles, set his stance, and drove upward with every ounce of force his body could generate. The bar rose steadily until his knees and hips locked out completely. the crowd erupting as the lift registered as one of the heaviest of the entire competition. His performance tied for the top weight recorded that day, propelling him toward the title of strongest man on Earth. Singleton walked away from the platform having proven his body capable of moving weight most humans could never budge. Walnut skulls. Two competitors stepped forward for a Guinness World Records challenge, testing who could crack the most walnuts using nothing but their own forehead. Navin Kumar from India went first, smashing walnut after walnut against his skull at rapid speed, ultimately breaking 239 within a single minute and surpassing the previous record of 217. Muhammad Rashid from Pakistan took his turn next, striking his forehead down onto walnut after walnut with even greater speed and precision. When the minute ended, officials confirmed he had cracked an astonishing 254 walnuts, edging past Navin's impressive total. Rashid was declared the official winner and received a new Guinness World Records certificate, cementing his forehead as one of the most punishing tools ever used in the competition's history.
In Mohammed's attempt, he got a total of 254.
No!
Forest levitation. A man walked his dog Tarzan through a snowy Russian forest, calling out commands as the animal trudged along beside him.
Ко мне, Тарзан, ко мне, я говорю. Тарзан! Тарзан, я сказал, ко мне!
He panned his camera across the open landscape and froze when he spotted two figures in the distance, an adult in an orange coat standing near a young girl in a red jacket.
Тарзан, ко мне!
The girl's body suddenly lifted off the ground, floating horizontally through the air several feet above the snow, while the adult beside her simply watched without reacting.
Что это? Тихо, тихо.
After hovering for a few seconds, she dropped back down onto her feet and calmly walked off alongside the adult as though nothing unusual had occurred. The stunned cameraman hushed his dog and muttered in disbelief, questioning what he had just witnessed before hurrying away from the scene entirely.
Тарзан, тихо, Тарзан. Боже мой, что это было?
Man playing tricks. A crowd gathered on a grassy field in a public park during the middle of the day, all eyes fixed on one man dressed in dark clothing. He hovered several feet above the ground, with no support of any kind. Arms stretched out to his sides, perfectly still. Spectators lined both sides of the lawn, some recording, some just staring, as he remained suspended in the air without a single wobble or shift in position. He stayed there, floating above the grass, for the entire length of the clip, while the crowd kept watching, none of them any closer to an explanation by the time it ended. Water miracle. A boat cruised across open water when passengers noticed something impossible standing in the distance ahead. A man dressed in red stood upright in the middle of the sea, seemingly walking across the surface with no boat, dock, or platform visible beneath him. The water rippled gently around his legs as the boat drew closer, giving everyone on board a clearer view of the impossible sight. No sandbar broke the surface, no hidden structure supported his weight, yet he continued moving as though solid ground stretched beneath his feet. Passengers grabbed their phones, capturing the moment before the boat passed close enough for a final glimpse. The footage spread rapidly once uploaded, with viewers debating whether the man had discovered some trick of shallow water or something the ocean itself couldn't explain. Car lifting. Security cameras captured a woman walking through a parking lot with a shoulder bag while checking something in her hands. She stopped beside a parked car, pulled out a small spray bottle, and sprayed her neck, shirt, and both legs. As she reached her legs, the bottle slipped from her fingers and rolled underneath the vehicle after her foot accidentally nudged it. She crouched down twice trying to retrieve it, then lifted one side of the car with one hand while reaching underneath with the other. When that failed, she shoved the car sideways, picked up the bottle, slipped it into her bag, and calmly continued on her way. Sky Zeus. A massive storm rolled over the city as dark clouds swallowed the skyline, and something impossible appeared, suspended high in the air beside a towering building. A human-like figure hovered motionless amid the chaos. Its silhouette illuminated each time lightning tore through the clouds around it. Bolts struck repeatedly near the floating form, some appearing to pass directly through it without causing any visible harm or disruption. The figure remained fixed in place throughout the storm, arcs of electricity crackling around its outline as though the lightning answered directly to its presence. Viewers who captured the footage immediately compared the figure to Zeus, the mythological god long associated with commanding thunder and lightning from the sky. The footage spread rapidly online, leaving audiences questioning whether the storm itself had somehow given rise to something ancient and godlike. Nail legacy. Sridhar Chillal from Pune, India, began growing the fingernails on his left hand after a teacher scolded him for accidentally breaking one during his school years.
शाळेमध्ये असताना माझ्या एका मित्राच्या हातून सरांनी एक नख वाढवलं होतं आणि ते माझ्या मित्राच्या हातून नख तुटलं गेलं. त्यामुळे आम्हाला त्यांनी मारलं आम्हाला आणि नंतर आम्ही त्यांना सरांना विचारलं बाबा तुम्ही नख तुटलं एवढं कशाला आम्हाला मारलं.
What started as a small act of defiance turned into a 66-year commitment, and his nails eventually curled into long, coiled formations that grew heavier with every passing decade.
आणि जसजसे नखं मोठी होत गेली तसच्या अडचणी वाढत गेल्या. घरातल्या लोकांचाही त्रास होता, नंतर घरातल्या लोकांचा विरोध होता, नंतर टीचरचाही विरोध व्हायला लागला. नंतर मग मी हे केलं, ठरवलं की मग आता याच्यापेक्षा काढायचीच नाही नखं शेवटपर्यंत.
The immense weight gradually rendered his entire left hand permanently disabled, unable to perform even basic movements. Motorized rotaries saw carefully cut away decades of growth in a delicate, closely monitored procedure.
आणि मी 52 पासून आतापर्यंत 62 वर्ष झाले. आता मला वाटतं की एखाद्या ही नखं आता मला माझं वय आता 78 असल्यामुळे.
He expressed deep relief once the weight finally lifted from his hand after over 6 decades. His remarkable nails were preserved afterward and now remain permanently displayed at Ripley's Believe It or Not museum.
So without further ado, wow.
Dead wood. A crowd gathered in a rural village where a sadhu dressed in flowing orange robes. In front of him was planted a bare, lifeless branch into the dirt. The wood looked completely dry, stripped of any bark or greenery, and onlookers watched closely as the sadhu raised a thin ritual stick above it. He moved his hand in slow, deliberate gestures, muttering something. Then, without warning, fresh green shoots appeared at the top of the branch, sprouting as if life itself had returned to dead timber. The crowd watched in awe as this impossible moment unfolded in real time. Floating monk. A street performer stood outside an old stone church in Budapest, and passers-by stopped in their tracks at what they saw. Dressed in flowing white robes with a bald cap and pale makeup, he appeared to hover in mid-air, his feet suspended well above the ground with nothing but a thin staff connecting him to a small platform below. One hand gripped the staff, while the other rested calmly at his side, his posture completely still despite defying gravity in plain sight.
Can you figure out how he's doing it? I don't get it yet.
Tourists slowed their pace, some pulling out phones to capture the impossible sight, while others simply stared in confusion. The illusion held so convincingly that many walked away still wondering how a human body could remain suspended in open air without any visible support. Flying humanoid. On an overcast afternoon, someone pointed a camera at the sky near a tall residential building and caught something that shouldn't have been there. A dark, human-shaped object hung suspended high above the ground, drifting slowly with no wings, no wires, and no visible means of staying airborne. The silhouette held its shape for minutes, a distinct head, torso, arms, and legs moving gradually through the clouds without ever changing direction sharply. The camera stayed locked on it as it drifted farther and farther, eventually approaching a thick bank of clouds. Then it faded from sight completely, swallowed by the overcast sky, and the only thing left on the recording was a wide, empty view of where it used to be. Superwoman. A confrontation erupted on a crowded street after a bus driver and conductor forced two young women off the vehicle. One woman tried to pull her friend back as voices rose, but the driver stepped forward aggressively, and everything changed in an instant. The girl thrust her hand out, and the driver flew backward through the air as if struck by something unseen. The crowd froze in stunned silence. When the conductor pushed further, the same gesture sent him airborne too, and the woman stared down at her own hands in disbelief. She raised them again, and market stalls and signs tore apart around her. The conductor lunged once more and was thrown back a second time, and the woman began screaming, unable to control the force taking hold of her before the footage cut out. Sacred ripples. A row of monks sat cross-legged in quiet meditation, their hands clasped in prayer as chanting filled the room. Before them rested a large silver bowl filled with water, untouched by anyone in the circle. As the senior monk's lips moved in continuous prayer, the water inside the bowl began to ripple and shift on its own, forming waves without a single hand making contact. Onlookers watched in silence as the surface rocked back and forth in rhythm with the chanting, almost as if the prayers themselves carried physical weight. Locals who witnessed the ritual called it holying the water, a practice believed to channel spiritual energy directly into the liquid. No one touched the bowl, yet the water moved as though something unseen had reached inside it. Headless walker. A driver moving through the streets of Ipoh, Malaysia, kept the camera rolling while passing ordinary pedestrians along the roadside. Nothing seemed unusual until the car drew closer to a man walking alone near the edge of the road. From behind, his shoulders appeared completely bare, with no visible head resting above them, as though it had simply vanished from his frame. The footage continued rolling as the car crept past him slowly, offering a clearer look at the impossible sight. Passengers inside the vehicle stared in silence, unsure whether their eyes were deceiving them or whether something genuinely strange was walking that street. The clip spread quickly online, with viewers debating whether the footage showed a trick of light or something far stranger moving among ordinary people. Hairy face. A young man named Lalit Patidar lived with an extremely rare genetic condition called hypertrichosis, often referred to as werewolf syndrome, which caused thick hair to grow across nearly every inch of his face. The condition affected only a handful of people worldwide, making him one of the rarest documented cases in medical history. Doctors offered no cure, and the hair growth remained a permanent part of his appearance from a young age. Rather than hiding from public view, Patidar embraced his condition openly, appearing in interviews and documentaries where he spoke candidly about growing up different. He carried himself with visible confidence, refusing to let stares or comments diminish how he saw himself. His acceptance of his own appearance turned him into an unexpected source of inspiration, proving that self-worth could exist far outside conventional standards of normal. Sound vision. A young boy named Ben Underwood lost his eyesight completely after doctors diagnosed him with retinoblastoma at just 2 years old. Yet blindness never slowed him down. Rather than relying on a cane or guide dog, he trained himself to click his tongue sharply.
You see this kid that has a whole different way of thinking. It's magic and it's real.
Sending sound waves out into the world around him. His brain learned to interpret how those clicks bounced off walls, cars, and people.
If I click down, then I can hear them easier. But if I'm walking, I'm just clicking over it, it's not gonna get it. And I can tell where desks are in the classroom and stuff like that.
Building a mental map of his surroundings in real time. Neighbors watched in disbelief as he rode his bicycle down streets, skateboarded around obstacles, and played sports alongside sighted kids without missing a beat.
If he chooses to go out there and ride that bicycle, let him ride the bicycle.
Scientists compared his ability to the biosonar used by bats and dolphins.
I don't think I've ever come across somebody like Ben. He was quite unique. I don't think I've ever seen anyone quite as remarkable as Ben, nor have I seen anyone quite as remarkable as Ben's mom.
a skill his mother had encouraged him to develop from an early age. Underwood moved through his world with a confidence that made his blindness nearly impossible to notice.
It's got to be very smart. Somewhere in there, it's a little genius going on.
X-Men. A man walked into a small nail salon, took off his jacket, and sat down for what looked like a routine manicure. As the manicurist reached for his hand to check his nails, a set of massive metal claws suddenly shot out from between his knuckles, unmistakably resembling Wolverine's iconic blades. She jumped backward instantly, visibly terrified by what had just appeared inches from her face. He stayed completely calm through the whole thing, watching her reaction with a faint smirk, while the claws remained extended and the clip ended with her still frozen in disbelief, staring at his hand. Airbender. A young man in an empty courtyard raised both hands slowly as scattered leaves along the pavement began stirring without warning. He moved his arms in slow, controlled circles, and the leaves responded instantly, lifting off the ground and swirling around his body. Bystanders nearby watched as the debris spiraled tighter with every gesture he made, almost as if his hands were directing invisible currents through the air itself. No wind machine, no fan, nothing explained the sudden gust that seemed to answer his movements alone. He continued controlling the swirling leaves for several seconds, guiding them around his frame with the same calm precision seen in fictional elemental benders, leaving witnesses convinced they had watched something genuinely impossible. Manual parking. A man struggled repeatedly to park his white sedan along a narrow street, inching forward and backward without success, as the space remained too tight. After several failed attempts, he stepped out, walked to the side of the vehicle, and gripped it firmly with his bare hands. Straining against the car's full weight, he lifted and shifted it sideways, sliding the vehicle directly into the parking space himself. Bystanders paused nearby, stunned that a man had simply carried his own car into place. Blur speed. A black and white security camera monitored a quiet city intersection, capturing nothing unusual until a sudden streak tore across the frame. The footage, overlaid with text claiming proof that the flash existed in real life, showed a blurred shape crossing the entire road within a single fraction of a second. No pedestrian could be seen walking or running normally, only a fast smear of motion suggesting speeds far beyond human capability. Viewers replayed the clip frame by frame, debating whether the footage had captured a genuine speedster or simply a glitch within the camera's recording system. Pupil control. Content creator Hannah Stocking went viral after filming herself dilating her pupils on command, seemingly at will, without any change in lighting.
Yo, it's real.
How you do that?
Okay, it's kind of easy.
Her irises expanded dramatically within seconds, leaving viewers questioning whether she possessed rare voluntary control over an involuntary bodily function most people can never consciously trigger.
Okay, all right, ready?
Yeah.
Finger strike. A martial artist stood before a row of green coconuts, holding nothing but his own bare index finger as his only weapon. He drove his finger downward with explosive force, and the tough coconut shell cracked open on impact, splitting apart as if struck by a blade. He repeated the motion again and again, piercing coconut after coconut within a strict time limit that few could imagine surviving. Commentary confirmed he held a Guinness World Record for the feat, earned through years of relentless conditioning that transformed a single finger into a tool capable of breaking through solid shells instantly. Stone overhead. Several strongmen stepped up one by one to attempt lifting a massive natural stone, each straining visibly against its weight, with some dropping it entirely before completing a full lift. Then the featured competitor approached, gripping the stone with none of the hesitation shown before him. He hoisted it to his chest in one smooth motion, then pressed it overhead again and again with startling ease. The contrast against the earlier failed attempts made his display of raw power and speed impossible to ignore among the other competitors on the platform. Ice climber. Freezing winds tore across the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro as Wim Hof pushed upward through deep snow wearing nothing but shorts, boots, and a backpack. Trekking poles steadied his stance against the ice while his bare legs remained exposed to conditions that would leave most climbers dangerously hypothermic within minutes. He continued trudging forward, seemingly unaffected by the brutal cold clinging to the mountainside around him. Pausing briefly, he spoke with his guide, admitting his acclimatization period had been unusually short, yet insisting he felt strong enough to complete the final push toward the summit. His guide offered words of encouragement, and Hoff turned back toward the rocky, snow-covered trail, resuming his extraordinary climb up the mountain with the same steady resolve that had carried him this far.
Hey, yes, man. How you doing, man? It's a hot mountain. We only climb.
Blue Man.
Paul Carrison, he was a recluse, but then became an internet sensation after his skin turned a permanent shade of blue. That was 15 years ago.
Paul Carrison gained internet fame as the Blue Man after developing argyria, an extremely rare condition that turned his skin a permanent shade of blue. The transformation occurred after he began consuming homemade colloidal silver, created through electrolysis, while also rubbing it topically onto his face to treat dermatitis and arthritis.
Yes, he did. In fact, people take colloidal silver to treat dermatitis and even arthritis. Precious metals have been used for centuries, actually for millennia.
Over time, silver particles accumulated within his skin cells and sweat glands, permanently altering his pigmentation.
It began use in ancient Egypt, also in the ancient civilizations of Greek and Rome, to treat various skin problems where there were no other treatments.
Carrison passed away in September 2013, at age 62 following a heart attack and stroke, leaving behind one of the most recognized medical transformations documented online.
And what happens is if you take colloidal silver internally, it's picked up by cells in your GI tract and carried straight to your skin.
Strongest mother. Donna Moore walked outdoors alongside her dog in footage tied to a credit score app advertisement, though her real story extended far beyond that brief appearance. As a British strength athlete and single mother of two, she balanced grueling training schedules with the daily demands of raising her children largely on her own.
I work 3 jobs, I have children, I've got dogs, so I need to be fairly organized to get it all done.
Financial constraints followed her throughout her early career, compounded by limited sponsorship opportunities and a persistent pay gap between men's and women's strength sports.
As a full-time strength athlete, it's a lot of expense and also a lot of organization of money. ClearScore is like having your own personalized strength coach, but for your finances, it gives me the peace of mind to just concentrate on what's important to me, which is competing.
Despite those obstacles, Moore claimed the world's strongest woman title 3 times, in 2016, 2017, and 2019.
I am Donna Moore, 3 times world's strongest woman.
My word,
cementing her name among the sport's most dominant competitors. She also captured multiple Arnold World Strongwoman Championships and set world records in Atlas stone lifting, proving that the barriers she faced never matched the strength she carried. Ice lungs. A Danish freediver stepped into shallow water at Balandra Beach in Mexico, and nobody watching expected what came next. Stig Severinsen slipped beneath the surface wearing nothing but a monofin, and he simply did not come back up. Seconds stretched into minutes as he glided forward, covering distance after distance on a single breath. When he finally emerged, officials confirmed he had swum 202 meters underwater without air, a new Guinness World Record. Severinsen already carried the nickname the Ultimate Man, earned through 4 freediving world championships and a jaw-dropping 22-minute breath hold performed beneath solid ice. He later built Breatheology, a program that taught ordinary people how controlled breathing could transform both their bodies and their minds. Opposite extremes. An Indian woman named Jyoti Amge stood just 62.8 centimeters tall, roughly 2 feet, and Guinness World Records recognized her as the shortest living woman on the planet. Her condition, a rare form of dwarfism called achondroplasia, never stopped cameras from following her, and she went on to appear in television shows and films, turning her small stature into a global platform. On the opposite end of human height stood Rumeysa Gelgi from Turkey, who measured an astonishing 215.16 centimeters, close to 7 feet tall.
This is Rumeysa Gelgi, tallest living woman. I am here to announce that I broke 3 more world records last month. The largest hands on a female, the longest finger on a female, and the longest back on a female.
Her extreme height came from Weaver syndrome, a genetic disorder that also affected her mobility, yet she pursued her education and became an advocate for people living with rare conditions. Both women shared something remarkable despite standing at complete opposites of the height spectrum. Each turned a rare genetic disorder into worldwide recognition, and each used their platform to challenge how society viewed disability and difference.
We're here in London's famous landmark hotel, the Savoy, for a very special occasion. This is a very special year for Guinness World Records. Not only is this our 20th Guinness World Records Day, but we're beginning the celebrations now for our 70th anniversary. How best to celebrate than to unite two of the most iconic record holders we have, Jyoti and Rumeysa, the world's shortest and tallest living women. These icons are here to help us celebrate.
Where Amge captivated audiences by fitting into spaces most people couldn't imagine, Gelgi towered over rooms most people couldn't reach. 2 bodies, 2 extremes, 1 shared truth. The world simply couldn't look away from either of them. Frustrated reaction. Inside a computer lab, a student grew visibly frustrated trying to get a stubborn desktop to cooperate, unaware that another student was filming him from across the room. He reached toward the keyboard and monitor again and again, his annoyance building with every failed attempt. Then, without touching anything, he gestured toward the screen, and the monitor slid backward across the desk on its own. The person filming gasped audibly. Realizing he was being recorded, the frustrated student turned toward the camera with a startled look and raised his hand toward the doorway behind him. A moment later, the heavy door swung shut and slammed closed by itself, cutting off the shot and ending the recording on a note nobody in that room could explain. Vanished in snow. Security footage from an empty road shows a lone figure walking across the open ground. Then, mid-step, he was gone. Not off frame, not behind a building, just gone. Mid-stride, like the footage itself blinked. Investigators reviewed the tape frame by frame, checking for a glitch, a dropped signal, anything that could explain it. The timestamp never skips. Whoever it was never resurfaced, and no one's ever come forward asking about them. The clip resurfaces online every winter, and every time, the same question follows it. Where did he go? Vanished mid-conversation. A university student stepped back inside a bar after chatting with 2 strangers, and nobody ever saw him again. Brian Schaefer, a 27-year-old medical student at Ohio State University, disappeared on the 1st of April, 2006, in Columbus, Ohio, following a night out with his mate, Clint Florence. The pair had ended up at the Ugly Tuna Saloona, a bar tucked inside the South Campus Gateway complex. Surveillance footage captured Brian at roughly 1:55 in the morning, standing near the entrance, speaking with 2 women he'd apparently just met. Moments later, he turned and walked back inside. That was the last anyone ever confirmed seeing of him. Police pulled every scrap of security footage the bar had, and the findings only deepened the mystery. Brian was never once recorded leaving through the main exit. Renovation work was underway in parts of the building at the time, raising the possibility he'd slipped out through an unmonitored area, though no evidence ever backed that theory up. When he failed to meet his girlfriend, Meredith Reed, for a planned trip to Miami later that day, alarm bells finally rang and he was reported missing. Investigators considered every angle an accident, foul play, even a voluntary disappearance, but not one theory ever held up. Brian Schaefer's case remains unsolved to this day. 2 cameras, no answers. Just before 10 in the morning on May 23, a driveway camera caught a man loading boxes into the trunk of a dark sedan. Nothing unusual until a stranger on a moped rolled past in the background and slowed down just for a second before continuing on. Neighbors later couldn't recall seeing that rider before or since. That man was Daniel Reyes, 34, and it was the last confirmed footage of him. He never showed up for work the next day. Nearly 6 months later, a separate street camera picked up something odd at almost 1 in the morning. A white car, headlights on, cruising slowly down the same road Daniel lived on, trailed closely by a larger vehicle. The footage cuts out before either car reaches the end of the street. Was it connected? Investigators still don't know. Daniel Reyes has never been found. Shadow that followed. A man walked out of his own office in the pouring rain and vanished from the face of the earth, despite Dublin's streets being lined with cameras. Trevor Deely was 22 years old and worked at the Bank of Ireland. On the 8th of December, 2000, he'd attended a work Christmas party before briefly stopping back at his office on Haddington Road around 4 in the morning. CCTV inside the building showed him chatting with a colleague before heading out again at 4:03. The weather was miserable that night, and Trevor was seen clutching an umbrella as he left. Then, at around 4:14, the cameras picked up something else, an unidentified figure dressed head to toe in dark clothing, lingering near the bank's entrance moments before Trevor stepped outside. That figure then followed him. From that point on, Trevor was never seen again. Search teams combed Dublin for weeks, checking every route he might have taken home and dragging nearby waterways, including the River Liffey, but turned up nothing. The mystery figure was eventually identified, though no solid link to Trevor's disappearance was ever established. His last known movement remains him walking away from his workplace into the dark and simply never arriving anywhere else. Panama Jungle Mystery. Chris Kremers and Lizanne Froon left their host family's home in Bouquet, Panama, for a walk with the family's dog, but only the dog ever came back. The 2 Dutch travelers vanished without a trace, and what followed was an extensive search involving locals, Panamanian police, and detectives sent in from the Netherlands, all combing through dense jungle for weeks, with barely a lead to go on. Then, a backpack turned up near a river, containing their phones, a camera, and scattered personal items. What was on that camera only deepened the horror: strange mounds of dirt, belongings scattered in odd patterns, and one unsettling photo of Chris that no one's ever fully explained. Phone records showed dozens of failed emergency calls, suggesting the girls had been stranded, likely for days, before anything was recovered. Theories have ranged from a tragic accident to something far darker. Some answers eventually surfaced, but the jungle never gave up the full story, and what really happened to Chris and Lizanne remains one of the most haunting mysteries out there. Airport runner. At just 28 years old, a man from Germany named Lars Mittank ran out of an airport and was never seen again. He disappeared on July 8, 2014, at Varna Airport, following a holiday trip with friends to the Golden Sands Resort. Shortly before the group's scheduled flight home, Lars was reportedly involved in an incident that left him with an ear injury, and doctors advised he shouldn't fly with the others. He stayed behind alone to recover, checking into a separate hotel and telling his mother he felt unsafe, convinced he was being followed. On the day of his rescheduled flight, he saw an airport doctor, underwent a brief exam, and was cleared to travel. But while waiting in the terminal, surveillance footage showed him growing visibly agitated. Moments later, he abandoned his belongings and bolted from the building, running toward a nearby wooded area. That was the last anyone ever saw of him. Search teams combed the surrounding area, but found nothing. His phone, wallet, and passport were all left behind. Some chalk it up to paranoia, but that still doesn't explain why he was never found. What do you think? Vanished airliner.
It's a mystery that gripped the nation for 27 years. A small plane takes flight from Sydney in 1931 and goes missing. Its 8 passengers on board are never heard from again. So what happened to the Southern Cloud?
On the morning of March 21, 1931, the Southern Cloud took off from Sydney bound for Melbourne, carrying 6 passengers and 2 crew. It never landed. When the plane failed to arrive, search teams combed the route between the 2 cities, but severe weather had rolled in that day and no trace of the aircraft turned up anywhere along it. For 27 years, the Southern Cloud simply vanished. Then, in October of 1958, A carpenter hiking through the snowy mountains stumbled onto the wreckage by chance, buried deep in timbered, mountainous terrain, roughly 16 miles off the direct flight path. Strangely, the plane wasn't just off course, it was facing the completely wrong direction. Investigators believe the pilot flew straight into violent winds and downdrafts that dragged the aircraft into the mountains, possibly with ice building up on the engines. All 8 on board were killed instantly. One man who'd cancelled his ticket last minute spent the rest of his life terrified of flying, and for good reason.
The radio on board that aircraft could only transmit, it couldn't receive information. So the pilots were actually flying into worsening weather conditions that they had no idea about. We have a saying in aviation that so many of our rules are written in blood, and this is a prime example.
Time traveler vanishes. John Titor wasn't your typical missing person, because no one's even sure John Titor was a real name. In November of the year 2000, a user under that name appeared on internet forums claiming to be a soldier from the year 2036 sent back in time to retrieve a computer. He answered questions for months, posted predictions about civil war and technology, and gained a cult following. Then, in March of 2001, he simply stopped posting. No goodbye, no explanation, nothing. He said his mission was complete, and he was returning to 2036, and he was never heard from again. Researchers have spent years trying to track down who was really behind the account, following IP trails, writing style analysis, and family claims, but no one has ever definitively proven his real identity. Was it an elaborate hoax, or something no one can explain? To this day, John Titor has never resurfaced. Appeared from nowhere. Dashcam footage from a busy highway, dated June 5, 2025, went viral for a reason no one could explain. As the car rounded a bend behind a red pickup and a loaded truck, a man suddenly appeared there, walking in the middle of the road, right in the driver's path. There was no sign of where he came from. No parked car, no side path, nothing. One frame the road just had cars, the next he was walking there. Unable to understand, the driver reviewed his dashcam and his suspicions were cleared out that he actually saw a time traveler. Ghost on air. A news reporter in Mexico was in the middle of a live broadcast, standing outside a building with her microphone raised, when something behind her caught the internet's attention. Shows a shadowy, spectral figure that appears to move across the frame directly behind her, right as she's speaking to the camera. The reporter never reacts, seemingly unaware of whatever was behind her. Viewers immediately zoomed in frame by frame, some claiming the shape has a human outline, others insisting it's just a shadow, a reflection, or a lighting glitch caught at the wrong angle. No one from the news station has addressed it. Was it really caught live on camera, or just a trick of the light? Trash chute vanishing.
7-year-old Patrick Alfred Jr. went missing from East New York, Brooklyn, 15 years ago. To this day, his case remains unsolved.
Patrick Alfred Jr. was only 7 years old, and he'd been with his foster mother in Brooklyn for just 3 weeks when he vanished. On the night of January 22, 2010, he left their 11th floor apartment at Spring Creek Towers to take out the trash. He never came back. Police K-9 units picked up his scent and traced it to a bus stop just around the corner from the building, and that's where it disappeared completely. Detectives launched one of the largest searches the city had seen since the Eitan Pats case, conducting over 14,000 interviews and searching 9,000 apartments. Patrick's biological mother, Jennifer Rodriguez, had given up custody just weeks earlier, hoping to get help and eventually get her children back. She has always maintained she doesn't know what happened to her son. Investigators believe he could still be alive and living somewhere near Brooklyn. 15 years later, Patrick Alford Jr. has never been found.
Then, on the night of January 22nd, around 9 p.m., Patrick left the 11th floor apartment to go throw out the trash. He never returned. The initial police response was immediate. It was massive. Lead investigators tell me they interviewed well over 8,000 to 9,000 people, and they knocked on more than 14,000 doors.
Girl who reappeared. Mary Louise Day was 13 years old when she vanished from her home in Seaside, California in July of 1981. Her stepfather, William Hoole, had accused her of poisoning his dog and manhandled her the night before. The next morning she was gone, and her parents told her sisters she had simply run away. No one reported Mary missing for over a decade. It wasn't until 2002, more than 20 years later, that Seaside Police finally took the case seriously. Detectives brought Mary's sister Kathy back to the old house, and she pointed to a corner of the backyard their stepfather had always told them to stay away from. Cadaver dogs alerted on that exact spot, and when investigators dug, they found a child's shoe, but no torso.
We're sure that a body had been there.
They were positive.
Positive.
Positive. They said, our dogs don't lie.
Then, before charges could even be filed, police in Phoenix pulled over a truck during a routine stop, and the woman inside said she was Mary Day. A DNA test confirmed she was Charlotte's daughter, but some detectives still weren't convinced it was really Mary. Was she telling the truth, or was someone else wearing her name? Phantom figure.
Her travel bag. It was like she walked in the night before and just dropped her suitcase right where it was. The rest of the home looked like a maid had been there.
She had everything going for her, and then she just vanished. Jennifer Kessie was 24 years old, recently promoted, and a year into a relationship she was clearly happy in. On January 24, 2006, she left her Orlando, Florida condo for work and was never seen again. 2 days later, her car turned up abandoned nearby. When detectives pulled surveillance footage from the lot, they found something chilling. An unidentified figure parking Jennifer's car around noon that same day, sitting inside for roughly 30 seconds, then walking away and never looking back. The camera only captured a frame every 2 to 3 seconds, and in every single one, the person's face was blocked by a fence post. Jennifer's family moved into her condo to stay close to the case and later pushed through new missing persons legislation in Florida. Nearly 20 years later, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement reopened the investigation with new forensic testing. The phantom figure has still never been identified. Who was behind that fence post?
He pulls into a parking spot next to the pool area, backs out to even straighten himself in there, sits in there for 32 seconds, gets out, walks away, never looks back.
Vanished mid-stop.
Any drugs or alcohol in the vehicle?
No, of course not.
During what looked like a routine traffic stop, a police officer approached a car pulled over on a quiet road to check the driver's paperwork. Bodycam footage captured the entire exchange as the officer spoke with the driver, a woman named Sarah, and took her registration. For just a brief second, the officer turned her head away. When she looked back, Sarah was gone, vanished without a trace, leaving nothing behind but an empty driver's seat and an open window. The clip spread rapidly online, with viewers questioning how someone could disappear from a moving conversation in broad daylight with an officer standing right beside her.
Sit tight, Sarah. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Your registration is What the?
Sarah?
What the heck? Sarah?
Elevator mystery.
Well, several years after a young woman was found inside a water tank on the roof of a downtown LA hotel, the mystery surrounding her has only grown. Her name was Alyssa Lamb, and investigators said she died of an accidental drowning. But is that really what happened?
On the 31st of January 2013, 21-year-old Alyssa Lamb vanished while staying alone at the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. A student at the University of British Columbia, she'd been traveling by herself when she suddenly stopped responding to her family. When she failed to check out of the hotel, concern grew fast. Police searched the building but turned up nothing, eventually releasing security footage from the hotel's elevator in hopes someone would recognize her. The video spread instantly. Lamb could be seen behaving strangely inside the lift, pressing multiple buttons, peering nervously out into the hallway, and making odd gestures with her hands before finally stepping out and vanishing from view. Weeks passed. Then hotel guests began complaining about foul-tasting water and low pressure throughout the building. When maintenance workers climbed up to check the rooftop water tanks, they made a horrifying discovery. Lamb's body was inside one of them. Her passing away was ruled accidental, but the details never added up. The tanks were locked, and reaching them required both a ladder and a key. How did she get in? Was someone else involved? To this day, it remains one of the most unsettling, unsolved mysteries out there. Note before the end, and unmistakably real to his fans. On May 16, 1992, while performing at Salon Bugambilias in Culiacan, Sinaloa, an audience member reportedly handed him a folded note mid-show. 8 police officers. By the next day, he was deceased, and the exact circumstances surrounding his final hours have never been fully explained. Over time, speculation grew that the note he'd received earlier that night was some kind of warning or threat. Chalino Sanchez is still remembered as one of the genre's most important voices, his legacy forever tied to the mystery of what really happened that final night in Culiacan.
In Arizona, the search for a missing 24-year-old geologist continues well into its 4th month. Daniel Robinson left work at the Arizona desert near the city of Buckeye on June 23rd, but has not been seen or heard from ever since.
Daniel Robinson was a 24-year-old geologist working for Matrix New World when he vanished on June 23, 2021, after leaving a remote job site near Sun Valley Parkway and Cactus Road in Buckeye, Arizona. He'd been out analyzing groundwater levels that morning and simply never returned. Nearly a month later, his Jeep Renegade crashed and overturned in a ravine, just a few miles from the worksite, with his belongings still inside. Investigators searched over 70 square miles of desert using cadaver dogs, drones, and helicopters, but found no further trace of him. Cell phone data placed his device at the crash site the morning he disappeared, and police also looked into a reported sighting of him near the Hassayampa River, though digital evidence never lined up with that account. Buckeye police ruled out foul play, but his father has long questioned that conclusion. Years later, the case remains open, with detectives still working leads and Daniel's family refusing to stop searching for answers.
I have done 9 searches with volunteers. Much as I'll get out of Buckeye Police Department is very little. Just waiting right now to see if I can get like the FBI involved because things are looking very suspicious and they're getting worse and worse by the day. I still, like I said, it's 3 months out.
Shadow in Karachi.
As you could see, this weird man in blue, he started following me, and every time I was stopping, he was just passing me and waiting on a spot for me to pass him again so he can follow me again. And there was this point where I just realized, okay, something is off, so I started checking my phone for an address. I stopped, I made sure that he's not around anymore.
In September 2022, Turkish vlogger Seda Nur was exploring Karachi, Pakistan, documenting her travels for her followers.
I don't know why, but people are super kind here. Well, this is Karachi. Welcome to Karachi. Everyone is super polite and kind in Karachi.
While sipping a coconut drink from a street vendor, she noticed the same man in a blue shirt appearing repeatedly in her footage, seemingly trailing her every move. At one point, she felt an unexpected touch on her back and spun around to find only a young boy standing nearby, something she initially brushed off as accidental. But the man in blue kept following, and the unease didn't fade. Visibly shaken, Seda later recounted the entire ordeal from her hotel room, sharing it with her viewers online. The video spread quickly, and Karachi police launched an investigation. They soon identified and arrested the man, named Shoaib, who reportedly apologized afterward, claiming he hadn't realized his behavior would come across the way it did. Was that really the case, though?
Whilst I was checking my phone, someone touched my private place on here in my back, and I just turned around. I was ready to punch someone, so I just saw a little boy. He was around 12 years old.
Home intruder.
She was filming a TikTok video when the unthinkable happened.
Hannah Viverette was recording a TikTok video, dancing in her Hagerstown, Maryland apartment, when her balcony door suddenly swung open. A man reportedly climbed up to her second-floor balcony and let himself inside a man she recognized as someone who'd been watching her from his truck and making unwanted advances for months. He was later identified as Angel Rodriguez Gomez. Hannah backed away, filming him the entire time, before fleeing to a neighbor's apartment and calling police. The footage, still rolling as she escaped, quickly went viral, sparking widespread concern over safety and stalking. Police arrested Rodriguez Gomez 2 days later, charging him with burglary, assault, and stalking. Hannah later said she was grateful she wasn't harmed, but but admitted the fear of what could have happened still lingers. It's a chilling reminder that danger can sometimes come from a familiar face just outside a locked door.
36-year-old Angel Rodriguez Gomez was charged with burglary, assault, and stalking.
Silent stranger.
Damn, so I have the crazy guy?
A driver heading home late one night found himself in a deeply unsettling situation when a man in a hat suddenly stepped out in front of his car and refused to move. Concerned, the driver rolled down his window and asked if he needed help, but the man said nothing back. He just stood there, staring in a way that immediately felt wrong.
Yo, do you need money, bro? Do you need help? Are you okay? What's going on? No response, just like
the driver slowly reversed, trying to put distance between them while calling the police, but the man kept advancing, silent and expressionless the entire time. No matter how the driver repositioned the car, the figure matched his movement, closing the gap without ever saying a word. The whole encounter was caught on the driver's dashcam, and it's the kind of clip that makes your skin crawl. Some investigators believe this may have actually been an attempted setup, a known tactic used by highway robbers, where one person blocks a vehicle to distract the driver while accomplices approach from the sides. Whether that's what really happened here, though, nobody's confirmed.
wow.
Reckful's Japan stream. This clip comes from one of late streamer Byron Reckful Bernstein's famous IRL streams filmed during his time in Japan. Reckful was walking along a quiet city street at night, phone in hand, streaming live to Twitch, when a passerby began closing in from the background. Chat's mood shifted almost instantly, flooding with panicked monkus emotes and frantic warnings to run.
I'm running.
Some jokingly calling the man a sniper, others throwing out Yakuza references, half serious, half nervous. What made the clip stick around for years afterward wasn't just the panic, it was that nobody ever figured out who the man actually was or what he wanted. He never spoke, never explained himself, and simply passed by without incident. No name, no context, nothing. Reckful moved on with the stream like nothing happened, but the moment kept resurfacing online. Fans still debating what that stranger's deal really was. Now, with Reckful gone, the mystery man in that clip is one more small unanswered question tied to his legacy.
You know me? Why did you do that?
Vanished on Lake Atitlan.
The new details into Nancy Ng's disappearance come as her family continues to call for her to come home.
Her family responded to a report from Guatemala saying she drowned. They say this conflicts with evidence they've received from their attorney. Here's ABC's Eva Pilgrim.
Nancy Ng traveled to Guatemala in October 2023 for what was meant to be a peaceful yoga retreat, but the trip quickly turned into an unsettling mystery. On October 19th, she was last seen kayaking on Lake Atitlan without a life jacket. Her final known moment captured on video as she turned and waved toward the camera. Then she was simply gone. What happened afterward only deepened the confusion. The rest of the retreat group reportedly left Guatemala within hours, offering little explanation and largely refusing to cooperate with investigators. Rumors began swirling, but concrete answers stayed out of reach. Eventually, one witness came forward through an attorney, claiming Nancy had jumped into the water to swim despite being warned about rough currents.
She tried to tell her not to swim because it was rough out there and there was a good current. One leg in her kayak and one leg in the other kayak, and tried to get back to her and got close to her. And then apparently she lost the kayak again and she turned around to go back to get the kayak again.
And was swept away before help could reach her. Still, many aren't convinced. Why wasn't a life jacket provided in the first place? Why did those closest to the incident stay silent for so long? Nancy has never been found, and the full truth of what happened on that lake remains just out of reach.
My dad, and this sounds terrible, but he keeps his phone next to him at night, just like he's hoping for a ransom call, something that will prove that Nancy might still be alive and that she's out there, and she's just waiting for us to find her.
Barefoot in rain. On September 27th, 2014, Kaylin Lauder vanished after surveillance footage captured her running barefoot out of her apartment complex in the pouring rain. Just before she fled, she made several frantic 911 calls from a back bedroom, telling dispatchers there were intruders inside her apartment and describing suspicious activity she claimed she could hear happening around her.
Please hurry.
Are you at the location now?
Yes, I am.
Were weapons involved or mentioned?
No.
Can you talk freely with me?
Yeah.
Okay, where exactly are you?
I'm in the back bedroom.
Where did the suspect enter the building?
There's only one door on the west side.
Then she disappeared. For 2 months, there was no sign of her anywhere. Finally, her body was discovered miles away in the Jordan River, but the recovery only deepened the mystery rather than solving it. Investigators have never been able to say for certain what actually happened that night. Some believe she may have accidentally fallen into a nearby creek that feeds into the river while fleeing whatever frightened her. Her family, however, suspects foul play was involved, and they've never accepted the case as closed. To dig deeper, investigators are reportedly planning to visit and examine the exact location where Kaylin's ordeal began, hoping the scene itself might finally offer some answers.
Where does it sound like they're at?
The front room, near the entrance. It's a small place. Shut up!
Are they saying anything?
Yeah, I heard someone say, hey, go in there, so there's obviously two of them. Hey! Carol, lock the door! There's something going on there. No, don't do that, Carol. The door's still locked. It's impossible. They must have a key or something. Because when I...
Vanished sophomore. Just 2 weeks into his sophomore year of college, 19-year-old Bryce Laspisa's friends started noticing something was off. He'd abruptly ended things with his girlfriend without any explanation, then set off on a strange, unplanned road trip. That trip ended with his SUV abandoned at the bottom of an embankment, and Bryce nowhere in sight. He hasn't been seen or heard from since. Police initially suspected he'd taken his own life, but the case took a stranger turn when scent dogs tracked his trail to a nearby truck stop, seemingly leading away from the crash site. Searches of nearby Lake Castaic turned up no trace of him either. That's left many people wondering whether Bryce actually survived that night and simply walked away to start a new life somewhere else. Could he still be out there? Call stopped live stream.
Oh wait, my dad is calling. Hold on.
Twitch streamer JD Ann, a Just Chatting creator with over 250,000 followers, was live on air when a call reportedly came through from her own father's phone number. On the other end, though, was a stranger, a stalker who allegedly began hurling abuse before threatening to harm her father if she didn't expose herself on stream. Viewers watched her expression shift from confusion to visible fear as the conversation, conducted in German, played out in real time. She reportedly paused the stream to check on her father, who confirmed he was safe. JD Ann later revealed she'd contacted the police immediately afterward. This wasn't her first brush with a stalker either. She'd previously had someone send 25 pizzas to her home and call the fire department on her. Her ordeal reignited conversations about the harassment many female streamers face online.
Hallo Papa.
Wenn du deinen Vater lebend wiedersehen willst, tippen. Sofort im Stream.
Never made it home.
I've always said it was sort of a business decision, and the business decision was that if he doesn't get back in the union, he might go with the government. If he gets back in the union, things aren't going to be quite as cozy as they were with Frank Fitzsimmons. You know, Mr. Hoffa was somebody to be reckoned with.
James Jimmy Hoffa was president of the Teamsters Union, one of America's most powerful labor unions, and a man with well-known ties to organized crime figures. He was last seen on the 30th of July, 1975, in the parking lot of the Macus Red Fox restaurant in Bloomfield Township, Michigan, where he'd reportedly gone to meet with 2 men connected to the mob. He never returned home, and no one has confirmed seeing him since. More than 200 FBI agents were assigned to the case across several cities, and investigators have followed countless tips over the decades, digging up sites in Michigan and New Jersey based on witness leads. Hoffa was declared legally dead in 1982, but his remains have never been located. The case is still officially open, with the FBI stating it continues to follow any credible leads that come in.
There is a dusty file at FBI headquarters in Washington called Hoffex. It's a 56-page briefing by agents prepared a few months after former Teamsters Union leader Jimmy Hoffa vanished. Tonight, the conclusion in that FBI memo remains the working theory as to what befell Hoffa and why he was murdered at the hands of Detroit mafia figures.
Walked through wall. CCTV footage from outside a closed shop caught something that's left viewers stunned. It was late at night, and a homeless man lay asleep nearby, wrapped in blankets against the cold. Then a figure in a dark hooded jacket approached the glass doors. Just as he reached them, a flash of light hit the camera, and the timestamp in the corner began glitching wildly, cycling through random dates. Somehow, the man passed straight through the closed door as if it wasn't there. Seconds later, the screen flickered again, and he reappeared through the same solid glass, now carrying food and drinks, before calmly walking off. The flash startled the sleeping man awake, who glanced around, clearly confused by what had just happened. Some believe it's clever editing, others aren't so sure. Lost over the Pacific. Amelia Earhart was one of the most celebrated aviators of her time, famous for being the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic. In 1937, she set out to become the first woman to fly around the world, accompanied by navigator Fred Noonan. On July 2, during one of the final legs of the journey, their plane vanished over the Pacific Ocean while attempting to reach tiny Howland Island for refueling. Her last confirmed radio transmissions, picked up by a nearby Coast Guard ship, indicated she was running low on fuel and struggling to locate the island. A massive search was launched, but turned up nothing. Over the decades, theories have piled up that the plane simply ran out of fuel and sank, that she and Noonan crash-landed on a remote island and survived as castaways, or even that they were captured after straying into Japanese-controlled waters. Despite numerous expeditions searching for wreckage, no definitive proof has ever been found, and Amelia Earhart's disappearance remains one of aviation's greatest unsolved mysteries. Vanished without trace. A series of clips began circulating online, showing security and surveillance footage of people apparently vanishing into thin air in ordinary urban settings across New York City. One moment someone was walking through a shop, a car park, or a quiet street the next. They were simply gone, with no trace and no explanation. Investigation teams tried to find out what actually had happened, but could not get any leads. And this was deliberately called a hoax to calm mass pressure. Part fish, part human. A crew working off the docks near Port Fortune, Louisiana, had just hauled in their weekly catch when one man noticed something odd tangled in with the rest. He hoisted it up onto the scale to weigh it, and that's when the shape became impossible to ignore. The lower half looked disturbingly human, smooth, pale skin stretching down to a narrow waist, while the upper half shifted into a scaled, spiky-ridged tail built for the water. The crew stood around, completely stunned. Online, viewers were convinced they were looking at a real mermaid. Mysterious sea creatures.
Oh.
A man kayaking through icy waters near the Bering Strait off the coast of Alaska found himself boxed in fast. Dozens of massive wrinkled bodies surfaced all around his small inflatable boat, their thick pink-gray hides bumping against the sides as more kept crowding in. Tusks and whiskered snouts pushed up out of the water from every direction, leaving barely any open space to paddle through. He grabbed his yellow oar and started pushing the creatures back one by one, trying to carve out enough room to break free.
Okay.
Shark washed ashore. A group of friends visiting the Greenland Cove in Bremen, Maine, spotted something huge lying tangled in the seaweed along the shore. When they went closer, they were left shocked because it resembled a shark, 26 feet long. Its gray body stretched across the rocks with its enormous mouth wide open. Marine resource crews took samples for further testing and identified it as a basking shark, the second largest fish in the entire ocean, docile and harmless despite its massive, gaping jaws. Netted humanoid. A fishing crew working deep in the Pacific Ocean hauled up their net, expecting the usual catch. Instead, something pale and humanoid was tangled inside. Its limbs bent at odd angles as it struggled against the mesh. The crew stood back, unsure what they were even looking at, before it suddenly tore through the netting and dropped straight back into the water, vanishing into the deep before anyone could react. Shaken, the crew was convinced they had caught something that shouldn't exist, but when they posted the clip online, viewers quickly dismissed it as a hoax. Leviathan sighting. A fisherman pulling in his nets in the open sea in the Atlantic Ocean suddenly froze when something massive broke through the misty water. A huge, dark, dome-shaped hump rose slowly out of the waves. Before he could get his camera fully on it, the shape sank low and slipped beneath the surface, leaving nothing behind but rippling water. He had heard rumors for years about something enormous lurking in these waters, and after what he'd just seen, he was convinced he had just filmed the Leviathan itself. Glowing fish. A man fishing along the riverbank near the Mississippi River outside Baton Rouge, Louisiana, held up his evening catch. It was a long, silvery fish stretching almost 2 feet long, its blade-like shape glinting under a strange electric blue glow. He identified it as a cutlass fish, a predatory species known for its elongated, saber-like body and nocturnal habit of rising near the surface to hunt smaller fish and squid at night. The glow surrounding it looked otherworldly on camera, but it was a specialized fishing lamp rigged up for the catch. River mystery. A man crossing a bridge over the Singapore River noticed something strange moving through the murky water below and stopped to get a closer look. Curious, he pulled out his phone and started filming as the dark shape rose briefly toward the surface before slipping back under. Its long, slick body barely broke the water, never fully revealing itself. Unable to place what it was, he brought the clip home and showed it to his father, an experienced fisherman who had spent years working these waters. After watching it closely, his father identified it as a catfish. Big catch.
Talk about a catch of a lifetime for one Texas City fisherman when he reeled in a very rare 1,000-pound shark 40 miles off the coast of Galveston. Janelle Bludica spoke with him about the family tradition of catching sharks.
3 brothers, Clint, Tyler, and Avery Fuller, were out fishing off the coast of Galveston, Texas, chasing a family tradition that stretched back 30 years when their father had once reeled in a 1,000-pound tiger shark to win first place. Fishing at midnight during a tournament, they got a bite and set the hook, fighting the shark for about 20 minutes before finally bringing it alongside the boat. They guessed it weighed around 800 pounds. When the weighmaster called out the final number, they froze in disbelief. The shark weighed 1,004 pounds and stretched 12 feet long, beating the mark their father had set decades earlier.
Weighmaster said it's going to be right at 1,000, and we just look at each other and just start freaking out.
And I hopped down there and gave him high fives and hugs. It was awesome.
Stranded fish. A man walking barefoot on Siesta Beach, Sarasota, one Sunday morning stopped when he spotted something strange lying half in the shallow water near the rocks. It was a large, grayish fish, its mouth gasping in the shallows. He had never come across anything like it before and stood there filming, unsure what it really was. Eventually, he gently pushed it back toward deeper water. Curious, he searched it online and identified the strange fish as a salmon. Mysterious water creature. A fisherman waiting patiently on Westport, Washington, by the water suddenly felt something strange tug against his line. As he reeled it closer, it let out a low, unnatural sound. Almost a growl that caught him completely off guard. 2 long whiskers curled from its mouth, and 2 fins sat oddly close to its neck, giving it an unfamiliar shape in the dim light. It kept thrashing and struggling against him, refusing to give in easily. Then, in one sudden move, it broke free and slipped back into the dark water, leaving him stunned. If you have any idea what kind of fish it was, let us know in the comments. Alienoid fish. A fisherman working the waters off the coast of Murmansk, Russia, pulled up something so strange it instantly went viral after sharing it online. It was a dark, bulbous creature with a round, wrinkled head, sunken eyes, and a small downturned mouth, giving it an alien appearance. Its bloated shape came from the sudden pressure change after being hauled up from the deep sea, distorting its features entirely. Curious, he filmed it closely before sharing the footage online. Experts who reviewed the clip identified it as a deep-sea lumpsucker, one of the many bizarre-looking species regularly pulled from these frigid northern waters. Beach anomaly. A crowd gathered on a beach near Nags Head, North Carolina, after they spotted a massive pale shape lying motionless in the sand. It stretched several feet long, its skin wrinkled and grayish, with ridged folds running down its sides and no clear features to make sense of at first glance. Phones came out as more people crowded closer, trying to figure out what they were looking at. Then, without warning, its mouth shifted, and it dragged back toward the waves and disappeared completely. Later, when they shared the clip online, viewers brushed it off as a hoax.
What did we just see?
Giant tuna.
A 17-year-old Melbourne fisherman has reeled in the longest fish at liberty in Australian history. The giant 30-year-old 135-kilogram bluefin tuna was caught off Gunnamatta on the Mornington Peninsula last week.
Off the Mornington Peninsula in Australia, 17-year-old Ryan Gazzola was out on a fishing trip when his line suddenly went taut with something far heavier than usual. After a long, grueling fight, he finally hauled in a massive bluefin tuna, one that turned out to be the longest fish at liberty in Australian fishing history. This tuna, estimated to be around 30 years old, weighed in at a staggering 135 kilograms. Standing beside the towering catch with his crew, Ryan said he was stoked to have landed something that size. Onlookers called it a once-in-a-lifetime catch.
I'm pretty good now. I'm very stoked about it and very happy. So, yeah, it's still unbelievable. Still can't believe it. So basically, yeah, we hooked it and I was fighting it for 4 hours. And after the 4 hours, finally, this big giant beast hit the deck of the boat.
Ducks on a whale. One morning in June 2022, two fishermen sailing off the coast near Sarasota, Florida, spotted something odd floating ahead of their boat. Two ducks sat quietly on the surface of the water, unmoving, as if resting on something solid. Curious, the fishermen steered closer to get a better look. That's when they realized the ducks weren't floating on the water at all. They were resting on the back of a massive gray whale, drifting silently beneath the surface. The fishermen cut their engine and watched in shock as the giant creature stayed calm beside their boat. Mermaid voices. A man kayaking alone in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea had gone out that day hoping to capture the strange sightings people nearby had been talking about. As he paddled farther from shore, he heard a haunting sound drifting across the waves, unlike anything natural he could place. What added weight to his claim was that a nearby fishing crew, out on the same waters, reported hearing the exact same eerie sound at night. Convinced of what they'd heard, both believed it belonged to mermaids.
This is crazy. I heard it.
River nightmare. A fisherman working along a river in Thailand noticed something moving through the murky green water ahead of his boat. At first glance, it looked like nothing more than a wild boar swimming across, something he'd seen plenty of times before. But as he focused his camera and got a closer look, he was left stunned. The creature's mouth stretched wide open, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth lining a gaping jaw unlike anything he had ever come across. Its thick, mud-colored body barely broke the surface as it moved. If you have any idea what it might be, then write it down in the comments section. Terrifying fish. A man heading out to fish early one morning stopped cold when something washed up in the sand caught his eye. Lying there was a creature unlike anything he'd ever seen. Its pale, scaly body tapering into a sharp dorsal fin and tail, but its face was the part that stopped him completely. Two sunken, hollow eye sockets sat above a snarling mouth packed with long, curved fangs. Later, when he searched it online, he found out it was a piece of rogue taxidermy, a fish body fused together with the skull of a baboon, just for the tourist attraction. Baby dragon. A man fishing along the coast in Cambodia pulled something strange out of the sea and laid it out on a foam tray to get a better look. What he found was a slender, blackened creature with a long, twisting body, thin, curling limbs, and a small, clawed hand stretched out to one side, almost lizard-like in shape. Convinced it was too strange to be an ordinary fish, he became certain he had caught a baby dragon. Rather than keep it, he carried it back to the beach and buried it in the sand, believing something like that deserved to return to the earth it came from. Double-mouth fish.
As you can see, there's the one mouth there.
One Monday morning, back in October 2015, A fisherman named Gary Warwick was reeling in his catch off the coast of South Australia when something about the fish in his hands made him pause. Its face carried two separate mouths, one stacked just above the other, both fully formed with visible teeth and gill lines. Stunned, he filmed it closely from every angle before releasing it back into the water. Marine biologists later explained the deformity likely stemmed from a genetic mutation during early development, a rare split in tissue growth that caused facial structures to duplicate rather than fuse properly, similar to conjoined formations seen occasionally in other species. Unknown deep fish. Off the coast of Brazil, researchers using a special underwater camera came across something that had never been documented before. Floating near the surface was a strange long fish, already lifeless, its pale body stretching nearly 6 feet with small teeth and no visible scales at all. Once brought in, it weighed more than 80 pounds. Experts noted its unusually thick fat layer, which means it wasn't edible. The fish was carefully preserved in formaldehyde for further study. Human-faced fish. A fisherman casting his line in Buffalo Creek, in Darwin's Northern Territory, pulled up something that left him completely baffled. Staring back at him was a round, brownish fish with an unsettlingly human-like face, wide-set eyes, a soft rounded nose, and a small mouth. When he shared it online, viewers guessed it was a type of pufferfish, but experts were not sure, and its exact species stayed a mystery. Giant white shark. A marine biologist diving off the coast near Guadalupe Island in Mexico to film marine life came across something that stopped him mid-swim. Gliding through the deep blue water was an enormous great white shark, her massive body trailing a cloud of smaller fish swimming alongside her for protection. Over 20 feet long, it was the largest great white ever captured on camera, one of the biggest ever documented in the world. Her weathered skin suggested decades of survival in open water. He kept his distance and filmed quietly as she moved past without a hint of aggression. Giant stingray.
Paul, I don't think this can fit in your truck, dude. It's that big. Holy moly, this thing's massive. And now we're gonna let it go. You ready?
Two friends fishing along the Mersey River in Tasmania, Australia, had been waiting for hours when their line finally went tight. Excited, thinking they'd hook something big, they started reeling it in with everything they had. What surfaced wasn't a fish at all. It was a massive stingray, with a long tail trailing behind it. It turned out to be a smooth stingray, one of the largest and most venomous stingray species in the world, capable of growing to exceptional sizes in these waters.
Give it a yank. There you go. Cool. Holy. Okay. He's free. He's good to go. Whenever he wants. Dude. He's good to go. Wow.
Record-breaking fish.
Estimating. Is it over 1,000 pounds? Josh says it's over 1,000. It's over 1,000. I go, oh, I think it may be a little bit more than that. But one thing we didn't know, the length of it. It turned out to be well over 14 feet. Actually 14 feet, 7 3/8 inches. We measured it because we took some rope when we had it beside the boat from the nose to the tail.
A professional fisherman heading offshore near the coast of Florida was flying a drone over the water when he spotted something unbelievable, a massive hammerhead shark chasing down a blacktip shark trying to hunt it. Moments after hooking a blacktip themselves, the giant hammerhead swam straight up and swallowed it whole, all captured live on drone footage. His fishing partner, Greg Norman, fought the shark for nearly an hour, using heavy tackle before finally bringing it alongside the boat. Once measured, the shark stretched an astonishing 14 feet 7 inches, larger than the previous world record. Before releasing it, the crew jumped into the water alongside the massive shark, calling it one of the most incredible experiences of their lives.
Look at the size of that hammerhead shark, guys. He's got to be cool. Dude, he's got to be over 1,000 pounds.
Over 1,000 pounds.
Wow.
14 feet. Unbelievable.
Dude, what a fish.
Ghost sea creature. A fisherman out on the Bering Sea coast, Alaska, spotted something strange bobbing near the surface and reached down to scoop it up for a closer look. Sitting in his hand was a completely see-through, gelatin-like tube, its body almost invisible, with faint internal ridges running along its length. It felt soft and fragile, nothing like any fish or jelly he'd handled before. Curious, he held it up and filmed it from every angle before setting it gently back into the water. Later, when he researched it, he identified the strange creature as a salp, a harmless, free-floating organism that drifts through open ocean water, filtering plankton as it moves. Cold water catch. A Japanese fisherman working a frigid lake near Hokkaido fought hard against something heavy pulling at his line, wrestling for hours before finally hauling it up through the icy water. What came up tangled in the net was massive, its pale, wrinkled body covered in loose folds of skin, with a wide, gaping mouth and tiny eyes barely visible. Holding it up proudly for the camera, he identified it as a monkfish, a bottom-dwelling predator known for its enormous jaw and rough, unappealing exterior. Despite its intimidating look, the monkfish is considered a prized catch, valued for its firm, flavorful meat in Japanese cuisine. Loch Ness catch. Just a month ago, a man fishing along the edge of Loch Ness in Scotland cast his baited line into the murky water and waited. Without much warning, something dark surged up from beneath the surface, thrashing violently as it snapped at the bait. Water sprayed in every direction as a long, curved black shape broke free above the waves. Whatever it was, vanished back into the depths just as fast as it had appeared. Shaken but still curious, he later identified it as a large catfish. Tarpon fish. A group of fishermen waiting along the coast of Sebastian Inlet, Florida, had their patience tested for hours before one man finally felt a hard pull on his line. Bracing himself against the safety barrier, he threw all his weight into the fight, refusing to let the fish gain any ground. The battle stretched on for nearly half an hour, his arms shaking with every pull as the line strained against the massive weight beneath the water. When he finally hauled it up, cheers broke out. Wading into the shallows to hold it up, he'd landed a massive tarpon, one of the toughest fighting fish along the Florida coast. Legendary catch. Jeremy Wade, a British angler, was fishing along a quiet lake, hoping for something big, when his line suddenly went taut with tremendous force. He fought the fish for nearly an hour. His rod bent almost double as something dark and powerful thrashed just beneath the surface, refusing to give up easily. When it finally broke the water, its long, slick body writhed hard against the net before he managed to haul it in. It turned out to be a Wells catfish, one of Europe's largest freshwater fish, capable of growing over 8 feet long, and known for its immense strength and legendary status among anglers. River horror. A man in the middle of the Musi River in Palembang, Indonesia, was just about to cast his line when something in the water left him shocked. Floating near the surface were 2 large curved horns jutting out from the water, while the rest of the body stayed hidden beneath the murky current. Terrified by what he was looking at, he quickly changed direction, convinced he had come face to face with a river monster. What do you think it really was? Beach struggle. A group of fishermen standing along the shore near Corpus Christi, Texas, had been reeling steadily when their line finally started dragging hard toward open water. Bracing themselves against the pull, they worked together, wading deeper into the surf as the struggle intensified. Slowly, a massive shape began cutting through the waves toward them, its wide, hammer-shaped head unmistakable even through the churn of white water. They finally dragged the exhausted hammerhead shark into the shallows, its powerful body still thrashing weakly against the sand. Red porgy.
Just walking along and I hear this sound and I'm like, what the hell? There's a pinky snapper.
Just a month ago, a man waiting along Monterey Bay, California, after hours of fishing with nothing to show for it, heard a strange rustling sound nearby. Curious, he looked closer and spotted a fish floating motionless near the water's edge, its scales catching the light in shades of shimmering pink and silver. Before he could react, a rat darted out, grabbed the fish, and dragged it straight into a drainage pipe. What stunned him most wasn't the rat, but the fish's oddly vivid, colorful skin. He filmed the moment and shared it on TikTok, where one commenter identified it as a red porgy.
Ratatouille just comes out of nowhere, or Master Splinter from Ninja Turtles, takes away this fish into his dungeon in there.
Giant grouper. One Sunday, a man out boating near Newport, Oregon, decided to lower his fishing gear right at the surface, hoping to lure something in for a quick catch. Smaller fish began circling immediately, drawn in by the bait. Then, out of nowhere, a massive dark shape surged up from below, dwarfing everything else in the water around it. He had been fishing these same waters for 10 years and had never seen anything like it before. Once it settled near the surface, he got a clear look and identified it as a giant grouper. Aquarium escape. One of our subscribers, an experienced fisherman, once caught a strange octopus and decided to keep it as a pet, setting it up in a glass aquarium filled with murky water. He never expected what would happen next. Hours later, the creature somehow broke free, cracking straight through the glass, and made its way out into the house, dragging itself across the floor and up the staircase toward its bedroom. Security footage captured its slow, deliberate movement through the empty hallway. After a while, a loud scream echoed through the house. What exactly happened once it reached him was terrifying. Giant arapaima.
Look at this! Arapaima on a fly. This thing...
Back in 2012, British angler Jeremy Wade was fishing along the Rio Negro in the Amazon with a local guide when something enormous finally took the bait. He dove straight into the murky water, wrestling hard to keep control as the massive fish thrashed beneath him, dragging both men through the mud in the struggle. After a tense fight, he finally hauled it up, a giant arapaima, one of the largest freshwater fish in the world, its golden body streaked with deep red scales. He held it steady just long enough to film it before, in one sudden jerky movement, the fish slipped free from his grip and vanished back into the river.
I was going to say, it's built like a missile. This is a tired fish, believe it or not. Two of us can hardly restrain it.
Human-faced fish. On the 11th of June, 2023, a man fishing off a deck along the Chesapeake Bay near Annapolis, Maryland, froze at what he saw floating just beneath the surface. Staring back at him was a face resembling a human, complete with visible teeth, defined lips, a rounded nose, and dark eyes. He kept his camera steady, watching as the creature slowly drifted upward, revealing a dark and slimy body trailing beneath that strange face. Shaken, he searched it online and identified it as a sheep's head fish, known for its oddly human-like teeth and expression. Wells catfish. Along the River Po in Italy, angler Yuri Grisendi felt his spinning rod bend hard the moment something massive took the bait. What followed was an intense 3-hour battle, the fish pulling with relentless force as he fought to keep control of the boat. When it finally surfaced, its enormous grey body stretched far longer than expected, its wide, whiskered mouth gasping as the crew hauled it alongside. Later, they identified it as a European Wells catfish, weighing 230 pounds. Fearsome catch. A group of friends boating near the Gulf Coast in Biloxi, Mississippi, hoping for a routine catch, reeled in something none of them expected to see. Its long silver body ended in a sharp, blade-like snout, and its mouth stretched wide open, packed with rows of thin, needle-sharp teeth. A tall, spiny fin ran the length of its back like a sail, giving it an almost prehistoric look. Stunned, they took turns filming it up close, before carefully lowering it back into the water. They shared the clip with one of their marine biologist friends who claimed that it was a lancetfish, a rarely seen deep-sea predator known for its fragile body and fearsome bite. Faceless fish.
Scientists exploring the deep ocean floor off eastern Australia have made some astonishing finds, and they've put them on show, including one extraordinary fish that doesn't appear to have a face.
During an Australian deep-sea expedition in 2017, researchers pulled up something strange from nearly 4,000 meters below the surface. Lying in the collection bin was a pale, slick-bodied fish with no visible eyes and no mouth, just smooth, featureless skin. Scientists identified it as a faceless fish, a rare deep-sea species whose features are simply covered by muscle tissue. Living in complete darkness, it relies entirely on smell to hunt and survive at crushing depths.
It seems like it's got no eyes at all.
Open discussion. Now it's time for today's most awaited segment of the video. On the 28th of August, 2021, a fisherman wading through a shallow lake in Black Hills National Forest suddenly felt something heavy, thrashing hard against his grip. What he'd caught was unlike anything he'd pulled from these waters before. A sleek, muscular body covered in dark scales dotted with pale spots. ending in a wide, glowing turquoise tail. The creature fought hard, twisting and struggling with everything it had, desperate to break free, but the fisherman held on tight, carrying it back through the mud. When the footage made its way online, viewers were quick to identify it as a real siren. That's a wrap on today's weird corner of the world. If any of this got to you, even a little, leave it in the comments. Like, subscribe, and come back tomorrow. We've already got something lined up that'll make today look tame. Thank you so much for watching. Before you go, drop in the comments which one got you the most. Your picks help us find the next video. Like, subscribe, and let's keep building the weird side of the world together. Thank you so much for watching.